Our approach to raising children must go beyond mere words. Every day, we should remind our children about honesty, perhaps once or twice when we are with them. However, what is even more important is to continuously observe whether they truly understand what honesty means through their actions and attitudes. Are they truly honest in what they do? This is a process of continuous observation. At a deeper level, this process is actually a transformation. At a surface level, we call it theory, which represents moral teachings and knowledge. Untransformed knowledge is like a bookshelf full of wisdom. A bookshelf of great books is valuable, but it remains at the level of theory until it is internalized and applied. When we read books, we are engaging in study. When we understand those books, we are engaging in reflection. And when we extract lessons and put them into practice, we are engaging in application. Thus, study consists of principles, wisdom, and knowledge that we remember and synthesize to integrate into our lives. When we read books, we are engaging in study. When we understand those books, we are engaging in reflection. And when we extract lessons and apply them, we are engaging in practice. Thus, study consists of the wisdom and principles we remember, internalize, and bring into our lives. When you successfully integrate these principles into your life, this is called transformation. And this is when a person truly embodies culture. On the other hand, if you memorize many noble principles, but fail to apply them, you are someone with knowledge, but without transformation. And knowledge without transformation is the very definition of lack of culture. It's that simple. When a person constantly talks about morality, they are merely operating at the level of theory. But if we ask them, what lies behind morality? And they cannot answer, it reveals the shallowness of their understanding. Similarly, if we ask, how many methods exist for cultivating morality? What are the deepest approaches to developing true moral character? If they cannot answer, it is clear that they have not truly understood. When a person does not deeply understand morality, the likelihood that they will practice it effectively is very low. They can only apply it at a superficial level. That's why, when someone talks about morality, we should not only judge by their words, but also observe. Do they truly understand morality at a deep level? Does their behavior and lifestyle reflect their values? Are they a worthy example to follow? Only when we evaluate all three aspects can we determine whether someone truly embodies both knowledge and transformation. If not, they are simply someone who knows but has not transformed. Take, for example, the concept of empty PhD. Vietnam has one of the highest numbers of them in the world. An empty PhD is a prime example of knowledge without transformation. They can recite theories fluently, but when it comes to practical application, they fail. They have knowledge, but no transformation. Similarly, we see model neighborhood signs everywhere in Vietnam. But what if you walk into one of these neighborhoods and find discarded heroin needles in trash bins? Is that truly a cultural neighborhood? Or, if homes in that neighborhood must have 3 layers of doors out of fear of theft, is that truly a place of culture? If a house with only one door would be easily broken into, how can that be considered a safe and ethical community? This is another example of knowledge without transformation, where slogans exist but true change does not. The modern definition of culture actually has a deeper origin. The Buddha described this as the process of study, reflect, practice. If we compare the two concepts, which one is more precise? Culture, or study, reflect, and practice? Clearly, the latter is more meaningful. This process follows a natural and logical progression. Once you study something, you must then reflect on it, and finally you must practice, apply, and refine it. This is the complete cycle of transformation. It is important to note that in Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha never used the term culture, but instead referred to hearing, contemplating, and cultivating. Similarly, he did not use the concepts of conscious and subconscious mind, but instead spoke of the aggregates of consciousness, mental formations, perception, and sensations. For a long time I questioned why this was the case, but when I finally understood, I realized that modern language often lacks the precision of ancient Buddhist terminology. The words used in the past were far more specific and clearly defined. From this understanding, we can apply the same principles to building corporate culture or family culture. Do you want to create a strong family culture? A family with a deep cultural foundation becomes a true home. A family without values or culture is just a house, not a home. Building a house is easy. Building a home is difficult. To create a true home, a family needs unspoken agreements and shared values. This is what we call culture. For example, in marriage, faithfulness is an implicit rule. Although it is not explicitly written in a marriage certificate, we understand and accept that we must live with dignity, integrity, and loyalty toward each other. I can assure you that 99% of people can maintain proper behavior, but not all can maintain purity in their thoughts. Mental infidelity always leads to consequences. You might be sitting next to your spouse, but your mind is thinking about someone you found attractive earlier in the day. That is mental infidelity. To truly correct behavior, we must start by correcting our thoughts. If you purify your thoughts, your actions will naturally follow. There will be no infidelity, no affairs, no unfaithfulness later on. Many people fail to realize this. Some even argue, "I can think whatever I want. What matters is what I do." That is naive thinking, because what you think repeatedly will eventually manifest in your actions. Mental habits accumulate over time. If you indulge in lustful thoughts 1,000 times, those thoughts will eventually turn into action. Have you ever realized this? What actually feeds our thoughts? What fuels these mental patterns? It is everything we encounter daily. The things we see, the sounds we hear, the physical sensations we experience. These stimuli nourish the mind, shaping the thoughts that arise within us. So, how do we control our thoughts? We must start by regulating our senses. What we look at, what we listen to, and most importantly, what we physically engage with. Let's take a specific example. Imagine you are a male owner of a modeling agency. Can you completely avoid physical and visual exposure to beautiful women? Of course not. You must look at them. You must listen to them speak, and sometimes you may even have to physically guide them in training. You invest time and effort in transforming them from a plain country crow into a dazzling swan in just 3 to 6 months. With constant exposure, physical contact, and admiration, lustful thoughts are bound to arise and intensify. This is why I find it difficult to believe that modeling agency owners can always remain faithful. In reality, people in such environments often become notorious for promiscuity. This is not coincidence. It is simply a natural outcome of their daily exposure. When implementing corporate culture, where do you think the process should begin? With the owner or with the security guard? In other words, should the study reflect practice process start with the lowest ranking employees or with the owner first? It must start with the owner. That's right, the owner. If the owner does not embody this process, then no matter how much they talk about culture, they are simply someone who has knowledge but lacks transformation. And if the owner lacks culture, how can they build corporate culture? This is the downfall of countless businesses. I have seen many companies spend millions hiring consulting firms to reshape their corporate culture over 6 months to a year. They pay hundreds of millions, or even billions, for these programs. But here's the problem. The executives and board of directors don't attend any training. Instead, they spend their time drinking and partying. They expect only employees to adopt the corporate culture. Meanwhile, they themselves remain unchanged. How can that ever work? It's the same as a family where parents tell their children, be respectful, be cultured, and be kind to each other. But at home, the parents constantly fight and curse at each other, and yet they expect their children to be loving and well-mannered. How is that possible? Building culture is a top-down process. It can never be built from the bottom up. If Vietnam truly wants to become a culturally strong nation, then the transformation must start from the top, from the highest-ranking leaders. When top leaders set an example, it naturally spreads to government officials, and eventually the people will follow. Culture is never built from the bottom up because the study-reflect-practice process must always begin with those in leadership. Is this process easy or difficult? It is extremely difficult, especially the latter half of the journey, where implementation becomes most challenging. And yet, if the most capable leaders refuse to take action, but instead expect the lowest-ranking people to do it first, isn't that completely unreasonable? In a company, the CEO must lead first. The executive board must adopt the change first. Only then can employees follow. Real leadership is about leading by example. In both education and corporate culture, true transformation requires commitment from leadership first. The leader must deeply understand the process and implement it themselves before expecting others to follow. Only then can the transformation be effective and sustainable. When I finally understood this principle, I was able to build culture within my teams and companies much faster. I now implement culture quickly and efficiently. For example, if I need to transform a core leadership group of 10 to 20 people, the key individuals who shape and influence the entire organization, I can complete the cultural transformation in just 3 months. Once this leadership group fully embodies the new culture, they naturally spread it to the entire company. Compare this to my past mistakes. Before I understood this process, I struggled with building culture for an entire year, sometimes even 2 years, with no success. Despite putting in immense effort, everything felt slow and ineffective. Progress was sluggish, and the transformation never truly happened.